Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Authors on Mission podcast, where we dive deep into the strategies and insights and today's most impactful experts in the writing industry. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Today, we're joined by a remarkable guest, Dr. Zaid, known as the Dr. Persuasion. With over 2,000 lectures delivered worldwide and a track record of transforming businesses across 4 continents, Dr. Zaid brings a unique perspective on success, combining his experience as an economist, attorney, and master of persuasion. His latest book, The 21st Century Sales Bible, is revolutionizing how professionals approach business and personal growth. So, everybody get ready for an episode packed with actionable insights that will transform how you think about success and how you think about writing your book. Without further ado, Dr. Zaid, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Danielle. I'm happy to be here. It's a great privilege for me to work with Authors on Mission, so I'm happy that you invited me to your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly such an honor to have you on as well. I'm glad that we were able to find a time to meet and connect and really dive into everything about your writing process and also what you do outside of writing too. So before we begin and talking about your book, I'm wondering, can you give everybody a little bit of insight more about who you are, how you came into the industry, and sort of what led to you writing your book?
Yeah, so I'm 48 years old now. I'm married for the second time. I have 3 kids, one 14, one 16 from the first marriage, and one soon to be born in the second marriage. And
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. When I wrote books, I always treat it like my kids, because I started writing books when I was single. So my mother asked me, why don't you get married? So I said, I already have kids, it's first book, my second book. So, but now there are books and there are kids. So I'm a business consultant and a speaker for 22 years now, since 2003. And I provide business consulting and lectures and workshops on how to improve your marketing abilities, sales abilities, persuasion abilities, public speaking abilities, negotiation abilities. And I also a lawyer and economist, and I have a PhD in law on how to persuade judges. Always I dreamed of writing books since I was a kid. One of my first memories were with my parents. When I was 5 or 6 years old, we went to a book fair. I am from Israel. I live in Tel Aviv now, in the middle of Israel. And I was born in Haifa, it's in the north of Israel. And there was every year a book fair once a year in Haifa. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I went with my parents, and it blew my mind. I saw all these books, all these authors, all the crowd, and there was a loud sound system, and it told us, now we have the bestseller author here, this and this, who wrote this book. And I was amazed. And then I decided that one day I'm going to write a book. I didn't know what I'm going to write about. But I was amazed, and I imagined a picture that I'm standing in the other side of the booth, not I'm getting signed by other people, but I signed to people. And when I was 27 years old, I completed my first book. It's called Public Speaking. In Hebrew, it's called Persuade and Influence Any Audience. And this book is an international bestseller book. It was also a bestseller in Israel. I always read books. I still read books. Today, I think I finish one book every 2 weeks, something like that. I'm talking about print book. I also obviously hear podcasts, newsletters, read papers. Always I keep reading books. I already read books. So for me, it was a dream come true to become an author myself.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, it's amazing to think about, everybody, especially writers, they usually say, I've wanted to write since I was a kid, right? They have like that, dream that they want to make come true. And it's amazing to see somebody who took that and brought it into their life. And I love what you said about, your book is your child, because really it is. You take it from just a little idea and you raise it to be something that is on the shelves that everybody can learn from and appreciate. I love that metaphor. I might start using that myself.
Yeah. Yeah, actually true, because you need every creator, create something out of nothing. You have an idea in your head, and then you write something for yourself. By the way, many people always tell me, even if they met me in the international book fairs, they say, I always wanted to write a book myself. But think about it, how many people they have the idea, but they didn't actually wrote even one page? How many people wrote few pages but didn't complete the book? How many people completed the book and then showed it to someone? They didn't show it to anyone. I know some people that completed the book and they tell me it's in the shelf. They didn't show it to no one. How many people completed the book, show it to one family member, and they say, "Oh my God, you are going to be an author? It's ridiculous." And they brought the book back to the shelf. And how many people got to publishing houses and they get no for an answer, and then they, immediately threw this idea away. So when you see authors, when you see books on bookshelves, in bookstores, or when you see authors signing on their books in book fairs, they had to overcome so many obstacles, so many steps. So you can't take it for granted.
Yeah, definitely not. You have to overcome obstacles, like you said. You have to really just, if you want to write a book, go out and do it and set your mind to it. And what's interesting? I was looking at your biography and some things you've done. Is it true that you started selling flowers at a traffic junction and then somehow, from there grew yourself into a global expert in persuasion? I mean, how did you do that? And, how did that story take place?
So first of all, I worked all my life from a family. I wasn't poor, wasn't rich, but a good family. My parents raised me to be a hard worker, and I work all the time. So when I was 12, I already sold the flowers in the junction. And most of the successful people I know, managers, people who are very successful, they usually started working when they're very young, and usually they did the, hard works, and they build themselves, step by step. So when I started, nobody taught me sales and marketing. Later on, I studied it, but nobody taught me. But when you do something like that, when you start selling flowers in the junction, you learn a lot about sales and marketing, how people behave, what you can say, what you can't say, what will help you close the deal, what won't help you. So you have lots of insights. Afterwards, I was also worked in a summer camp. I was instructor, and I was a babysitter, and I was even a security guard, in football matches. So I did all kind of jobs, all of them related to communication skills, to talk in front of people, to be around people. Every job taught me some tools. I think it became some kind of a peak. When I was a student, I also was an officer in the Israeli Army, in the Israeli Air Force. I was in the flight academy, and then I was an air traffic controller. So each time I was commanding other people. And I think the peak was when I was a student. I joined the debate society, and then I started competing in debate. And then I realized, first of all, how many communication skill I have, and second of all, how many I need to learn. So, and then I learned because we competed against, the biggest and the top universities in the world. I represented Haifa University in Israel, and I competed in world championships and Europe championships against, Yale and Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard. I thought I was very smart coming from Israel, being the top of Israel, and then in debate competition, and then you say some argument, and then they flip you back on you, and then you say, wow, it's amazing. So I learn each time something new, and you gather insights, I think, all of your life. But when you are very, very young, then you get an experience and perspective that allows you to write a nonfiction book when you're 27 years old.
I mean, wow. First off, you've been in so many different industries. I mean, many people just pick, sort of one path and they're on it for the rest of their lives. I mean, here you are dabbling in all these different fields, and not to mention writing books as well. I mean, that's really incredible to think about, especially because every one of these things, like you mentioned, kind of built upon your knowledge and your experiences. And I guess that's in a way what makes you so successful, because you have someone to draw upon when you're offering insights and feedback to others. What would you say that, out of all these different industries that you've worked in, what sort of universal truths about business success or success in general have you discovered that always apply? I mean, one is starting young, right? But certainly you gain some knowledge along the way in other areas as well. What would you say is something across the board that you think has driven that success?
So first of all, people like to be paid attention to. People like personal attention, and if you pay attention to people, if you really listen to them, if you're nice to people, if you love people, then you will be successful, because people would like to be noticed. So in every job, whatever you do, if you'd like to promote yourself, if you'd like to take your career to the next level, if you'd like to sell more, you need to be nice to people. You need to love people. I provide business consulting also to speakers, to lecturers all over the world, and I always tell them not the secret number one in providing speaking gigs or lectures or workshops is love your audience. If you love your audience, they will love you back. And the rule number one in sales and marketing, love your clients. If you love them, they will love you back. So no matter what you do, no matter which age you are, then you need to be nice to people. You need to love people. You need to pay attention. You need to remember information they say to you, like we would like to treat other people to treat us. And I think another rule is we talked about hard working. So yes, to work hard and to experience yourself in many industries and to gain experience. Because everyone, all of us, we have a unique experience, unique perspective. So we need to build this perspective. And every expert is also a student, and I am student for life. I'm going to study new things probably all of my life. So you need to gain more and more knowledge, and don't think you know everything. And people see the success, they don't see the lab hours. They don't see the amount of time you get no for an answer. They don't see the nights you work. They don't see the weekends you work in. They don't see the obstacles. Again, they see the success, like we talked about books. So if you'd like to succeed, you need to love people. You need to work hard. You need to develop yourself all the time. And for me, we talked about reading books all my life. So not only I worked hard for all of my life, I also read books all of my life. And for me, if I read non-fiction book and I read, let's say, an old businessman, when he's 80 years old, he writes a book. Okay, and I read this book for 4 hours. Then in 4 hours, I got the experience of 80 years old. Okay, let's say 60 years of career without the pains on the way. So it's amazing. Non-fiction books, for me, is the best way to shorten your learning curve and to study fast and to gain experience of others without having, without the need to do it yourself and to have all these obstacles and pains yourself.
I love the way that you stated that. I mean, the idea that when you read a book, you have all that person's knowledge. It's almost like a cheat sheet to kind of just getting all the knowledge you can and just like absorbing it all. 80 years of wisdom in one book, just reading it within the course of a week. That's an amazing way to think about it. You could spend years trying to learn that same knowledge, but you pick up the book and it's directly translated into your life. But I think the thing I've really loved about what you said is the way that you have to love your audience, you love your clients, you love the people that you're working with, because by doing so, you're relating to them, you're empathetic towards them. And I like that you said that because that kind of translates directly into, writing a book too. It's as if you're doing market research by just knowing what your audience is going to be looking for next. Would you say that, your sales experience kind of was a factor in writing in this way that like you're able to take some of those sales strategies, but infuse them within your writing in a way that makes people want to continue reading?
Yes, of course, because first of all, in general, I think today we recorded it in 2025, so it's all about sales and marketing because the book markets are very, very wide, and you have many options, for consumers. So you need to present your book, not just write a book, present the book. Many times I work with authors and they finish writing the book after years, and they say, oh, that's it, the end of the road. They say, no, it's just the beginning, because now you need to present this book and you need to have it in front of as many people as possible and as many platforms as possible. And it's step by step. It's not like you put it on Facebook or you write one post or one newsletter and it will become a bestseller. So if you would like a bestseller book, you need to have many actions of sales and marketing. So you need to promote the book yourself. And we talked about being nice to people. So when I am in book fairs, sometimes I see authors that are not nice to people. People come to with the book, maybe sign the book, maybe let's talk about the book. And some people they just aren't nice to the clients, to the readers. And for me, we worked hard for our readers. Our readers, they are our community, they are our tribe. We need to serve to provide great service for them. And one time in Tel Aviv, they also had a book fair. I had a workshop there, and I took my audience to the book fair when I signed my books. And there was a very famous author in Israel. And one of my clients, she was very excited when she saw him. And she said, oh, it's amazing. I read all of his books. I would like to take a selfie with him. And she came to him with lots of enthusiasm. And he was very, very mean to her. He said, no, I don't take pictures. No, something like that. And she was very offended. And then she told me, no, he's a nasty guy. And then 1 year later, another book came of this author. So I asked her, did you buy the book? She said, no, I'm never going to buy his books. I'm never going to read his book. So you see the connection, because obviously in the subconscious level, at the conscious level, you say, well, what is the connection between the great books and the fact that this guy was mean to her in one moment, in one night? But you say, no, there is a connection, because if I don't like you as a person, I won't read your books. And if I like your personality, I will read your books. So you need to write a great book, but you also need to have a great marketing. And I think, by the way, Authors on Mission is part of my success internationally, because our cooperation allowed me to spread my word and to spread my messages all over the world with many podcasts and many cooperations that you got from me, and this way I can, by cooperation with you, more and more audiences. And for me, I can tell you that I'm just getting more and more hungry, because if the book is successful, I would like it to be more successful. So it never ends, We always would like more and more to achieve more and more readers, more communities, more audience for your book. Because this is our great, not only money, but also our great joy, and this is our mission, to help people. Like books helped me, nonfiction book helped me to become the successful person I am. I would like to help others, no matter what they do, no matter which age they are, to succeed more and to learn from my experience and to shorten their learning curve.
Well, I think, one thing that I'm noticing about you from our conversation is that you don't stop. You're always looking for something more, for more success. You just said that now, and you mentioned it before, like you're always learning, always reading new books. I think that's something really admirable, especially in an author, because, you always have to make sure your content's the most up to date and new and fresh, especially for the audiences that you mentioned. To touch quickly upon what you said about being nice to your audience too, I mean, that's entirely a whole new ballpark too. I mean, think of like any celebrity who's just like brushing off the paparazzi, whatever, you need to make sure you're building that fan base and, just showing, human compassion for others, right? Because that's what's going to make them want to pick up their book. I mean, if you want to support somebody who's rude to you or support somebody who is helping you and being kind and, showing their authentic self, that's a whole different, ballpark as well. So I completely agree with what you said. And, the other factor too is that you mentioned you can't just write a book and put it out there into the world. I love the way that you mentioned that you need to have a sales mindset to it, because that's something we do here at Authors, like you said too. Whenever I work with a client, sometimes we brainstorm like, how can your chapter translate into a speech one day? Or how can we take this paragraph and make it into like a little reel on Instagram one day? I kind of actually have a whole plan with this one client who, wants to make her book help her promote her brand. So what we did is, in the outline, we actually thought about ways that we could directly translate the content, almost like packaging it up to be used later on. So I think all these points that you made, again, just it's an amazing thing that all of our listeners should be applying in their lives. So I agree with that completely.
Yeah, for me it's obvious, but for most authors, what you talked about is a way out of their comfort zone. They just wrote text, and now you're talking to me about Instagram, about lectures. For me, it's obvious. But by the way, even if you write a book, I say, and I also mentor lots of nonfiction authors, I say to them, from the beginning of the writing, think about the end game. Think about the reader. Think about who is your target audience. Who is the reader? Is the avatar reader? Who are you going to write to? What are the main messages you would like before you start writing? And when you are during the writing, you need to talk about the keywords. Keywords of Amazon, keywords of literary agents. Not just when the book is finished and you prepare the marketing materials, but also during the writing process itself. So you need to think, if you'd like to have a bestseller book, you need to think from day one about who is going to read it, who are the target audiences. By the way, one trick I did with one of my books, including Sales Bible, my new release, it's the 21st Century Sales Bible. It's now translated to 12 languages so far. And what I did, that I have a big community, something like 25,000 people, that I send to them a newsletter at least once a week. And what I do in the last two books is every 2-3 years, I take all the newsletters I wrote, okay? And then I read all of them. And then I say, okay, this is boring, this is great, this is fun, this is not fun, this is relevant, this is not relevant. So out of, let's say, 200 newsletters, because I write at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, I choose 100 newsletters. And then I package them, okay, or repackage them into a book, because I say, okay, among those 100 newsletters, there are 10 talking about pricing. So let's have a chapter about pricing. There are 10 talking about personal attention. So let's write all of this 10. I will add into the chapter about personal attention. So you already have the knowledge because you create content all the time, every week, every year. Okay. And also, if you like a bestseller book, then you have another trick, because in the internet, everything you can measure. So when I take this newsletter, I know another fact. I know how many opening rate each newsletter had, which headline did well or not well. So I can choose the most common headlines. I can choose the most newsletters. And then when I write the book, I already repackage the information in a way that I increase the chance that this book will become a bestseller, because I already know, because this content was already online, I already know which worked the best with my target audience. So this is a great trick today. So you not just write the content and then afterwards you publish a book and then you hope someone will buy it on the bookstores. You already examine it and test it online, and then you know that it's going to be a success. How huge success, a viral success, you don't know, but you know that you can sell this book. This is another great tool specifically for nonfiction books.
I mean, I think that's an amazing strategy. All of our listeners right now, you have that little bit of homework to do now, right? Like kind of take that practice that you just described and implement it in your own life as soon as you're done with this podcast today. Because, I mean, approaching it in such like a scientific way, like that, kind of looking back and saying, okay, what was like the actual feedback I had? How can I adapt it, right? All of that is entirely relevant and something everybody needs to do. However, I also want to kind of go back. Would you mind holding up your book one more time for us? Let's circle back to your book here, because this is something we should all be looking at right now, the 21st Century Sales Bible. And Dr. Zaid, what I noticed is that, when I was looking through this book, you really focus on sort of the interconnectedness between formal education and also practical business skills, right? You talk a lot about how personal success and business success really intertwine, and you use that to come up with 10 commandments for how anybody reading the book can apply that to their own businesses. So can you talk a little bit about that, how your experiences shaped this book, and what was your approach when you started writing?
First of all, I thought about a headline that will stick, headline that people will remember, that will become viral. So for me, headline that is good, name of the book that is good, is that you understand immediately what is the book about. So if I call it Sales Bible, immediately you know, okay, it's about sales. And when the subheadlines is the 10 commandments, how to improve your income and sell more and get higher prices, then you know exactly when you see the front cover what is the book about when it's in bookstores. So first of all, this is why I picked it. But I love repackage my knowledge, and to package my knowledge and in a certain way that it can be measured. So when I talked about 10 commandments, I am Jew, I am Israeli, so obviously I think a lot about the Bible and 10 commandments. But then I said, okay, let's have 10 commandments, actually 10 chapters, and let's think what are the most important things that every salesperson and business person and manager need to know in order to succeed more in life and build a professional authority and build a brand and increase their income, etc. And the most 10 principles that I already teach through my newsletters and my workshops and lectures. And then let's take those 10 principles. Let's divide it to 10 chapters, 10 commandments, and let's look at all of what I wrote in the last 5-10 years about this subject. And then I gathered all of my information about personal attention. This is one chapter. About social proof, another chapter. About building a professional authority, another chapter. About pricing yourself in asking and getting high prices, another chapter. And then I sort of repackaged the information in order to fit a book that probably is going to be a bestseller, because it answered the needs of all of what my clients ask me all over the years. So this is how I did it, and I believe that any nonfiction book is actually based on our knowledge, our expertise. We talked about most of the authors and writers, when they write something, specifically non-fiction content, it's knowledge they have for many years. It's knowledge they teach maybe in academic courses or other places. It's knowledge they wrote about in social media or an article. So when you write a book is just another platform to express your messages. So this is how it worked for me, and how I recommend people to write non-fiction books.
Yeah, thank you so much for walking us through that. And now that it's out on the shelves, and it's been out for a couple of years now, I believe, How are you actively using it to grow your business and sort of just promote what your services and your brand? Did you just see a huge turnaround ever since it's come out?
First of all, I strongly believe that the book is just part of the business model. So I don't just rely on the income from the book, although there are great income. By the way, I already wrote 11 books, 6 in Hebrew and 5 in English, and they're all bestseller books. And these books, the 21st Century Sales Bible, I also sold the rights both to Russia and United States and China and India and other countries like Vietnam, Azerbaijan, and etc. But I think the biggest accomplishment, the biggest professional achievement of mine is that I managed to sell the rights of the same book to the Chinese, to the Americans, and the Russian. You know, the three superpowers that are very, very different in their mentalities. They all like the book. So obviously each publishing house in each country will do a slight changes in the book, you know, to adapt the target audience. But for me, it's a great achievement. So it's not just in most cases you publish a book and then immediately is sold very quickly and you get lots of money, etc. Usually, like I said, it's a step by step. It's in marketing, it's 1 + 1 + 1 equals not 3 equals 111, something like that. So you do many small actions to promote the book. By the way, me talking to you is another action. Join podcasts, you join the media. You provide lectures, you sell the book at the end of each workshop, each presentation, each lecture. And also inside the book, I did a call to action. Inside the book, if you look at the last pages, you can find my mobile, you can find my email, my website, all of the things to connect with me. I think it's also not common to authors that they share their personal information like this. But for me, the workshops and presentation, they sell the book. And the book sells the workshop and presentations, because sometimes people hear my presentation or company bought this. I also work B2B, B2G, and B2C. Business to client, people buy tickets to hear me, and business to business, companies and organizations hire my services as a lecturer and a consultant. And also B2G, I work with government ministries and armies and city halls, etc. So sometimes people hire you as a presenter, they hear you speak, and they know that you have a book, and then you sell the book at the end of the speaking gig, okay? Or they go to the bookstores after the presentation and buy a book. So this is how the presentation sell the book. But the book sells the presentation because many people, they come to the bookstore, they don't know me, they see the book, they read the book, they like the book, and they have a chance to talk to me and to contact me. Again, we talked about loving people. So for me, it's very, very important for me to be available, to answer people. I always say to people, this is my mobile, this is my email. I also share it with the readers now. And for my experience, most of the people won't approach me, but the ones who will, I always promise to answer any question they may have or to talk to them. So when people read my book and then they contact me, then it's a potential client, right? Then I can sell them, talk to them, and develop a personal attention and a long-term relationship. And some of them will become paid customers, and they will ask for a workshop or for business consulting or whatever. Or other authors, other speakers who would like me to escort them, and I would love to do it because this is part of my mission to help people, share their knowledge worldwide, both by writing and both by lectures. So for me, it's great. The book is part of the business model, and I would like to earn money first in the first circle from the royalties of the book, and second circle from the clients who will come to me after they read my book.
I mean, well, first off, I want to say, wow, congratulations for having your book just be in so many different parts of the world and really resonating with readers of all different cultures and nations. I would like to put a bookmark into that sort of topic and come back to it in just a second, because I think that's, something a lot of our listeners could really benefit from hearing about. But first, I kind of just want to recap what you just said there, because there's something powerful in understanding that, writing a book is almost like a cycle, right? You've emphasized a couple of times about how important it is to keep your knowledge up to date, to continuously learn and grow yourself, right? So that's sort of step one. Then by writing your book, that's one part of the cycle. By what comes afterwards, the speaking engagements, the increased clientele, right? That's another part. But it also works as a cycle, as you mentioned, because it all influences each other, right? You're learning from writing the book, you're learning from the speaking engagements, it goes back into writing another book, and so on and so forth. And that's, I'm guessing and noticing about how you grew yourself up, that continuous cycle of never stopping, right? So
another tip is actually when you write a nonfiction book, you write it evergreen, that it's always relevant. Because, for example, if I write an example about the COVID and I say, last year we had the COVID, and then you write and then you read it in 2030. So you say, oh, it's an old book, it's not relevant book, it's from the COVID area. Who remembers the COVID? But if I say on March 2020, the COVID was all over the world, and then we did this and this, and then you read it in 2030. Say, okay, it makes sense. He just said the date. He didn't mention if it was yesterday or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So you need to write it that it will always relevant. And when you talked about marketing and sales and negotiation and public speaking, all the communication skills, they are the same. There are slight differences with the digital era or the social media, but the principles are the same. So you can treat it 2003. So it's 22 years now in bookstores. Okay, so maybe it's not selling like it was sold in the first few years, but it's still on bookstores. Remember, think how many class of 2003, how many books came out this year. Most of them are not relevant in the market anymore, but the fact that it's still relevant, it's still being sold, is first of all because I'm still here promoting the book and talking about it in relevant, and second of all, because it's evergreen, it was written evergreen, so it's still relevant when you read it today. This is something very important if you write nonfiction books.
Yeah, I mean, I love that word. It's one of my favorite words when I'm talking to clients, evergreen, right? Because you don't want your book just go on a shelf and then collect dust after a couple of years. You just want people to keep picking it up like a decade from now, 50 years from now, whatever, right? Especially with the digital age, it's going to be out there forever. So you want to make sure it's always going to be relevant. I like that the specific example you mentioned about not saying yesterday or last week, right? Dates and facts that are always going to be there or something you should be using. Perhaps also just like making sure your strategies or whatever you're promoting and talking about will be relevant, right? Because, for example, you mentioned COVID, right? If you're talking about, specific practices that were relevant then, they're no longer relevant now, right? But, perhaps making it more connectable to, times that change.
Yeah. Actually, I had one chapter in the 21st Century Sales Bible about the COVID that I talked about viral marketing. So viral marketing is the phrase is from the virus, how the virus is spreading. So I gave the example like the COVID was, it was spread all over the world. So I talked about how information is being spread the same way. So again, I wrote it, not talking about nowadays when I wrote it, it was during the COVID, but I wrote it as if you read it today, you say, okay, great example about the COVID. I understand the connection between the COVID and, let's say, selling books, okay? Because it's evergreen.
Yeah, 100%. And again, that's a tip that we should all be, using as we're writing our books. Now that we've kind of, touched upon all that, I'd like to kind of circle back to that bookmark that I left before regarding, taking your book and promoting it in international industries. So, first off, how did you end up taking your book from, Israel and promoting it to other places? Was it difficult to translate into other languages? How did you reach out to these publishers? Where do you even start?
Yeah, great question. And Danielle, first of all, Israel is a very small market. We're just 10 million people, and we are in the Middle East, and we are an island economy because we're surrounded by enemies. So immediately, we would like to export your knowledge. So I always thought, how can I export my knowledge and write and sell the book outside of Israel to other nations? There are free international big book fairs in the world. You have a London Book Fair, the second largest one in Europe every March, okay? You have the Beijing Book Fair, which is the biggest one in Asia, in the Southeast Asia, in the Far East. And you have the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is the biggest in the world in Germany each October. So I learned about those book fairs, and those book fairs are the biggest marketplace in the world for buying rights of books. So this is the terminology. I wrote a book, so the rights, the copyrights are mine, and I can sell the book to other languages and other countries. So it's actually a big marketplace. So I can describe those book fairs like a combination between Walt Disney and Wall Street. Okay, something like that. So you have a very big fair, many publishing houses, many literary agents, all the big ones in the world, they show up for 3 times a year, Beijing, London, and Frankfurt, for 3-4 days each time. As I'm an author, I came for the first time in 2012, 13 years ago, with my book. I translated it into English because back then it was only in Hebrew. It was very successful in Hebrew, by the way, but already in Hebrew. And I translated it to English, and I launched a campaign on Amazon. And first of all, on eBay, because then Amazon wasn't so strong. So on Amazon and eBay, and then I got some track record because it was bestseller on Amazon. And then I made some marketing materials, and I flew without, flew on my expense, without any guarantees. I flew to the fair most of the publishing houses and literary agents, if I send an email before, they won't meet me or they won't agree to meet me. But when I came, I started, making meetings, walking from booth to booth, and every booth that was relevant for me, meaning that it has non-fiction books, and they also would like to acquire rights or to buy rights, not just to sell rights. So I went, I think, to the first book fair. It was in Frankfurt, 2012. There were 3,000 literary agents and publishing houses. It's amazing by size. You can walk there from days and you don't know who is who. But I made a list of all the publishing houses and all the relevant literary agents that deal with nonfiction books. So out of those 3,000 people, 3,000 companies, 300 were relevant for me. And then there was 5 days book fair between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So for 5 days, from the beginning of the day till the end of the day, I just had meetings. I think I did something like between 150 and 200 meetings out of 300 relevant people. I didn't manage to see them all. And out of those 150 people I met, something like 20 to 30 said, okay, it's interesting, show me the book or send me the book, because you don't actually sign deals inside the fair, but a successful meeting is a meeting that at the end of the meeting, they say to you, okay, it looks great, please send us the book for review. So I came back to Israel with a bunch of cards, business cards, and bunch of connections, and around 20-30 publishing houses who asked for my book, and I sent all of them. And then again, some of them they say no, some of them they don't get back to you, and some of them they say, okay, would like the book. And then I signed my first agreement. It was with Vietnam. Vietnam, by the way, I never been to Vietnam before, and I met this Vietnamese agent in Frankfurt. And they took me a year of negotiation and another year since from the moment we signed the agreement, another year till the book was published. But then I went to Vietnam for the first time, I think 2015, 2016, and I launched the book. They invited me on their expense to come to Vietnam and have a road trip, and I participated in many media coverage, and signing books in bookstores, etc. And afterwards, I came back to Vietnam a few more times because clients already asked me to come to Vietnam. So it all began in this book fair. So what I say to the authors, if you would like to become international, is first of all, know that you have book fairs, international book fairs, you need to be there. Second of all, if you are represented by literary agents, then make sure your agents represent you in those fairs. And thirdly, I say the world is wide, because Israel is a very small market. Even United States is just a limited market, at the end, because you have China, you have India, you have Vietnam, you have Europe, you have all those great markets. So if you have a good book and you think that you would like to share it with many people, then go and try to sell the rights of your book to as many platforms as possible, to as many languages as possible, to as many countries as possible. And we talked about the fact that the book is just part of the business model. So if you sell to Vietnam, to China, to India, to England, no matter what, then it opens another market for you. And then you can, to become an author, become an expert, become an international speaker, if you go to those countries. And the fact that you already published a book there, it's like a red carpet, for enter this market. So this is how I see books. So I love books, I enjoy books, but I also love the results that you gain out of a successful book.
Yeah, well, first, I love the way that you outline all of that in a very clear way so everybody could follow those exact steps, like step 1, step 2, step 3. But also, not everybody can do that, I would think. Everything that you just said requires a lot of dedication and heart. And the reason I say that is because that's something admirable. And hopefully our listeners today can take that as an example and, do that. Because one, I've traveled around a lot. I've traveled many different countries as well. And I know what it's like to kind of land in a new country and, learn the different ways to get around and the language and the signs, right? But you're doing that, but then also navigating your way to a book fair and conversing with people and finding ways to connect with them despite any culture barriers. And you're, really resonating with them in order to sell your book and sell your services. So, that's a whole nother level of skill, I would say, is to do that and to kind of just be that strong to do that regardless of where you're at. And no matter how tired you are, you mentioned multiple days worth of doing this. After a while, I'd be like, oh, please, I want to just sit on my couch and, relax a little bit. But you didn't give up. You just kept getting out there until you could sell yourself. And I guess that's just another aspect of being an amazing salesman is, You got to sell it yourself. You have to sell your book, your services. It doesn't stop. My question to you is this, though. Is that still relevant in today's day and age where there's so many virtual, meetings and stuff? Do we still have physical book fairs, or are there any options that perhaps?
Yeah. There are physical book fairs. Called this in January 2025. I'm going to London in 1.5 months in March 2025, and then I'm going to Beijing this June. So there are book fairs. By the way, people say that the print book is dead, but you need to go to those book fairs and you need to see what's going on there. You will be amazed. By the way, when you talk about books today, you have 3 platforms for a book. You have printed book, you have audiobook, and you have ebook. So you can also sell rights of audiobook, okay, of your content as an audiobook and as an ebook. And by the way, it's not like I'm perfect. Far away from it. I did mistakes. Again, most of the time you hear I did maybe mistakes, but because of the difference in culture. But I learned from my mistakes, and I always try to get better. And I think I bring some authenticity, to the table, because I have a unique perspective. You and I am Tel Aviv, you're in New Jersey. I am a guy, you're a girl. I'm from Israel, you're from the United States. So I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. And I always tell my clients, and I also write it in my books, in my business books, that you need to be authentic, because in 2025, people, they have, let's say, fake radar or bullshit radar. So you can tell them stories. You can tell stories about yourself that are not true. And I always tell to my client, I say to them, you need to be Batman and not Superman. Now, what is the difference? Batman and Superman, they're both superheroes, right? And they both look like human beings. But Superman is not a human being. He came from another planet. So if Superman will provide a workshop how to fly, and I bought a VIP ticket and I sit in the first row, and he explains to me exactly what to do. You need to go to the, let's say, highest tower, go to the roof and check the wind and check your steps. And I will do exactly what he says. I'm still going to fall because he's Superman, I'm not. But Batman is an ordinary guy who developed not ordinary powers. So if Batman is going to have a workshop how to fly, and you're going to tell me, Yaniv, you and I we're the same. Actually, I had the worst childhood, because the Joker killed my parents when I was a kid, and I fell into a cave, and I was afraid of bats, afraid of darkness. But then I taught myself how to fly. So let me teach you. Then I can relate to him, because we are the same, because he's authentic. He provides his truth. So I think for me, I gain an experience. Maybe if you go to the book fairs, then you have a different experience, and we can talk about the same subject, but in a very different way, because we both have a unique experience, unique examples, a unique background. So I say to all of my fellow authors, be authentic, be yourself. Don't try to be someone else, okay? Try to be the best version of yourself, okay? So I always did the mistakes. By the way, when clients come to me today for consulting, they buy my knowledge. They come to pick up my brain because I did so many things for so many years that I have lots of experience, so I can shorten their learning curve. So they read my books, or they come to my lectures, or they buy my business consulting because they know, not because I'm smarter than them, because I know something they don't know yet, or because I already did something they didn't do yet, and I would like to tell them, instead of them making all mistake possible, they can learn from me. So this is what I teach, and this is what all of nonfiction book authors teach. We teach our specific knowledge, our unique perspective, and we shorten the learning curve of our readers.
So you mentioned these courses and speaking engagements. I think you've offered us a ton of insights in just this hour-long podcast. And so anybody listening today is surely going to want to learn a little bit more about what you have to say. How can they find you? How can they sign up and continue learning from you?
Great. First of all, 21st Century Says Bible, you can find it on Amazon and on bookstores in North America and many other places. And on social media, I'm Yaniv Zaid, like it's written here, YANIV-ZAID. On Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, Spotify, just write Yaniv Zaid. You will listen to me, you will hear me. I have a website, it's drpersuasion.com. You have many articles there, many videos there. If you liked what you heard so far, then come and find me there. And you can also join my mailing list in English. And also, I love to be accessible, so this is my mobile. My mobile is 972-54-800-1200. And my personal email is yaniv@yanivzaid.com. It's YANIV@YANIVZAID.com. So please feel free to write email, to write a text message for me, or to call me. And I promise I will answer any question you may have.
Well, wow. I mean, first off, not only are we getting access to your courses, but your personal phone number. Can we call you at all times of the night then? Wake you up.
Yeah. You can call probably, yeah, because for me it's evening, for you it's morning, so yeah, you can
Hey.
call me
No,
whatever you
I
want.
mean,
If I can't answer at that moment, I will call you back the minute I can, or I answer you by email the minute I can. I always go back to everyone. Also by LinkedIn and Facebook, I will chat with people all over the world, and I also work with, again, different markets in different countries. So for me, it's a blessing. This is my mission, to help authors succeed in life and succeed with the books, and to help speakers talk the way and repackage their lectures and sell them worldwide, and to help businesses and entrepreneurs succeed more and develop their communication skills more.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, if it goes to say how much of an amazing salesperson you are, being accessible to everybody who wants to reach out to you, no matter what platform, what time of day, you're there to help people. And that's what really makes you truly successful. So, again, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. I think our listeners today, anybody aspiring to be an author or who is an author looking to continue their careers or improve their standpoint, you've offered some amazing insights for us to follow. I'm wondering, as we sort of wrap up today, what's next for you? You've had so many books and speaking engagements. What's next on the radar that we can be on the lookout for?
Personally, I would like to be happy. I have a kid on the way, maybe another kid next. Again, a second marriage. So at the end of the way, we would like to be better parents, better spouses, better persons. So I always try to self-develop myself on a personal level and a business level. More countries, more languages, more books, more lectures, more speaking gigs, more countries. And we mentioned Authors on Mission. So you are my partners, and you are part of the reason I got lots of achievements this year. So hopefully we can continue many years to come. And when I find good partners, I usually stay with them. So, more corporations, more partners, to meet more people, because I consider myself as a global, the international sales expert. And I would like to meet more people, meet more countries. Eventually, it's all about the fun. It's fun writing books, it's fun selling the books, and the books open a world. They open a world for you because you meet so many people, you have so many collaborations. When someone translates the book to your country, I mentioned Vietnam, but you can also share it with South Africa and Sweden and India and many more countries that I wouldn't have gone except for when other way, except my books were published there. So it opens a very, very wide range of experiences and opportunities. So more opportunities for me. This is what I wish for myself and for you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that everybody here today, as soon as this podcast ends, take all these insights, put them to action, reach out and really engage with all this material, because that's how you're going to continue to grow your business, your standpoint, your books. It's amazing stuff. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you, Danielle. You are amazing, and you are very professional. So I enjoyed speaking to you.
I enjoyed too. I really appreciate you coming on today. And to all of our listeners, that wraps up another incredible episode of Authors on Mission podcast. Dr. Zaid's insights on combining knowledge with business wisdom really showcases what this show is about, what the writing world is about, right? Because you can be empowered with real-world strategies for success just by, expanding your knowledge and drawing from your own experiences too. So thank you so much. Your journey from selling flowers at a traffic junction to becoming a global authority in persuasion really proves that the right mindset and tools can make achievement possible. So to everybody listening today, whether you're an aspiring author, entrepreneur, or a professional looking to level up, success leaves clues, and you could follow his example today. So thank you again for sharing your insights. And to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe. Join us next time as we continue to explore strategies for today's most successful experts. And without further ado, have an amazing day and check out our next episode.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.